I assumed you
right.
wanted me to call back
Yeah.
right after. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And now everything seems to be recording and doing everything fine. So I don't know what weird state it was in.
Weird. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
All right. I'm really digging the vibe I've got going on in my recording room right now. Instead of using an overhead light, I have this light that's shining against the wall behind. It's got this ambient. So I should send you a picture. It's cool. I feel very cool right now.
Nice. You using the new mic too?
I am.
I finally quit being lazy and moved back over to my Audio Technica one.
Why are you being lazy?
Well, I had to.
I mean, not why were you being lazy, but why do you consider what you were doing lazy? Is really what I'm.
Because I needed to redo a lot of the way I had the desk set up to put it where I wanted it and everything, and I just kept putting it off because it was. And there were more important priorities for a bit.
Sure.
And then
I can only imagine.
Yeah, and I ordered a couple of rugs, one of which it was for the office space so that I could put it up under the desk. And so since I had to move the desk anyway to put the rug down, it made sense to just do it all. Was that one of those like floor lamps that are kind of a just straight LED panel thing?
No, actually, it's a desk lamp.
Okay.
I bought it because during the day, for me, in the room that Becca and I share an office, it's plenty bright. Like the natural light that comes in through even like on a cloudy day, it's plenty bright for me. But even on the sunshiniest of days, Becca's like, well, she wants to turn the overhead light on. It's not that big of a deal. So I bought this lamp for her to put on the desk, and I thought maybe that would be enough for her. She's like, nah. I was like, okay. So I moved it over to my desk, and I thought I'd use it for podcasting. And tonight's the first night I've used it. I cleaned up a bit. I realized I had other stuff in the way, and I'm not a good photographer. I think it's just me being lazy about taking pictures. Anyway, yeah, that just goes. If you look on the bottom right, you see you can see the Blue Yeti. It's still on my desk sitting here, and behind it is an unplugged amplify with a Fubard WAM port, and it's sitting on the base of the lamp.
Okay.
So you can see that circle underneath it is the base of the lamp.
Yeah.
I was planning to hook up the amplify and use it for just like another mesh point, I suppose. I don't know if it can. I think it can function as a mesh. I don't know if mesh point is actually the right term for what it will do. But every time I think about it, it's the middle of the workday, and I'm like, this is probably not a good time to do that.
I think it's funny. I hooked up my amplify, but I'm only using it as a nice looking clock. Yeah.
Okay, adding an amplify standalone devices as mesh points. So yes, it is actually a mesh point. So I wasn't sure if it would technically be considered a mesh point for anyone who is actually understands the terms and not just throwing the term around like I normally would.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the new iteration, they don't even do the little mesh antennas anymore. Their recommendation is just to buy a second device and mesh them.
I like the antenna because it's so versatile to just plug into the wall.
Yeah, it actually, with the older wiring here, it's probably a good thing that I've moved to PoE distribution completely.
Do you have any extra mesh points that you are looking to sell?
I have 2. I don't think I'm going to end up using them at this point because it's, a month and a half in, and I have yet to have a reason to use the amplify as Wi-Fi. So yeah, probably.
All right, if you're looking to sell them, I wasn't planning to. Well, I was like, ooh, I need a little more. like the signal's fine, but it wouldn't hurt to.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I was just thinking through, like when I mapped out which access points I was going to use here, I intentionally tried to figure out what would give me the coverage and only use that. And then I turned around and added one additional into the mix. Because I figure, if I have coverage mapped out and it's appropriate, and then I have one extra one that I can move around as needed if I need to, then that puts me in a good spot. Because I'm not hamstrung by not having accounted for a floating, access point. And it worked out well because I put it in the living room up against that back wall to extend coverage out onto the patio area.
Nice. I think that for me, where the way the cable comes in, the coax comes into a closet underneath the stairs, and it's like not ideal. It's not bad, but it's not ideal. And I had one mesh. In my old house, I only needed one mesh point because where the coax came in was on one end of the house, and I had a clear line of sight for a mesh point. I only needed one mesh point, and that was enough for the whole house because it was robust enough to go to the basement. So. Being upstairs, and so, but now I don't. Now I could use probably two more, maybe 2 or 3 more mesh points. That would, I think it would, because I know you can have too many and cause problems that way. But yeah,
that was the main reason I tried to map out the access points up front here, is because I know in the old house I had way too much stacked. Yeah. And so I have 1, 2, I think just 2, maybe 3. I'd have to go back and look. I have 2 access points for sure that I am no longer using that are older Unify access points. And then I have 2, they call them beacons. Basically, they plug into an outlet and mesh to extend Wi-Fi coverage with a wireless uplink to an existing Wi-Fi access point, similar to the radios we're talking about with the Amplify. And I'm not using those either, so, which has actually been really nice because I think technically the way I have it set up, the one access point I have upstairs around all the bedrooms technically covers everything upstairs. And the only reason the one downstairs is needed is because it's a fully finished basement area, with sheetrock and everything too, instead of like drop ceiling. It deadens enough of the Wi-Fi to be problematic.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I don't... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are we going to talk about networks tonight?
We can. I was going to say, I have a very short thing that I was going to say about the topic at hand anyway. That I put in, and it stemmed from, I realized back in when we did episode 128, when we discussed the Harrison Ford interview, I had mentioned latching on to a quote, and I never did a good job of explaining why I latched onto it. So this is kind of long-running follow-up more than anything.
We're allowed to do that on our show.
Yeah, of course.
Is this 142 or 141?
This is 142, I think.
Yeah, 142. I don't see any notes. Did I?
They may have just not synced for whatever reason.
Oh, interesting. I just see my finger injury for the after show. Oh, that's a teaser.
Yeah, so the potential topics piece didn't sync up top.
So they did not.
Interesting. Okay.
No, I take that back. Potential topics: revisiting a religion, clarifications, philosophy, framework.
Yeah. So the quote that I was thinking about was when Harrison Ford was talking about nature and getting close to it, and that being the thing, so to speak. And I know I've mentioned the like Taoist concepts and all and things in general, but I never explained that there's a twofold piece to the way I approach it. One is taking into account, basically, that there is this unknown thing at the moment. Whether it's something that we eventually know better or can explain better, entirely irrelevant for the purposes of understanding that there is this thing, and I don't have to label it to acknowledge it exists. That thing is easiest for me to wrap my head around and understand and conceptualize within the framework of the beliefs that I've come to know more intimately than others, which are the framework of Christianity in general. And it's two separate things. And so when he was talking about nature and that being a thing to draw closer to, that speaks to the first half of you can actually label it whatever you want, and it doesn't change the acknowledgement of its existence, which is the same reason that I've many times mentioned that there are too many belief structures that say basically the same thing to be naive enough to think that only one of them is correct and all the others are horrifically, egregiously wrong. And that's kind of the follow-up in a nutshell. But I did a much better job of explaining it this time.
Well, you've had 14 shows to think about it.
Yeah, I thought about it when we did that show. I just never even said it. That's the funny thing.
Well, better late than never.
Yeah.
Every time I think of better late than never, I always think of the guy in Ghostbusters 2 saying that line when the Titanic shows up in the docks of New York.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, it's been like I saw it when I was a kid, and it's been in my head ever since then.
I remember, in general, I loved the original Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2 took me a couple of watch-throughs to really appreciate it. Like I think I expected less of an ominous overlord presence, for lack of better phrasing, or something. You know, the first one just felt more fun.
Did you ever see the new one?
I did.
I saw the one with the women.
I saw that one too.
I saw that one. I didn't see the new one.
The new one I enjoyed enough. I wouldn't say it was great, but I liked how they wove the story in and made it a continuation of sorts without it being a continuation.
I'll eventually check it out, but
it's in Plex if you want to catch it there.
Yeah, I figured it would be there when you said you'd seen it. So I was just thinking about the other thing that I like. I can't remember who said it, but I love it, and it's just like no mystery, nothing that has ever been solved ever that was mysterious to humankind was ever a ghost to this point.
I was trying to think of how to phrase. What's the other response to that would be.
I mean, so far, so
yeah. But anything else could still be ascribed or caused or identified as such.
Right.
That said, like I'm not one to necessarily believe in spirits roaming the world.
Right.
It's possible. I have no strong inclinations either way. If they do, they don't bother me.
Well, there's a couple of things that I have thought about it. Some of it has been just my own thoughts that I've come up with on my own. Not that they are original thoughts, because it's the same sort of thing. You know, you give a large group of people the same stimulus or input, and they will likely come to the same conclusions. And so I had these thoughts about how, I like that thing where I can't remember, I don't remember who said it, but it was, or where I read it, but it was like, no mystery has ever been a ghost yet to this point. And it's not to say that they couldn't be, but it's just like, I don't have, jumping to the conclusion that something is a ghost is a pretty big leap for me. And I'm not saying just like you said, I'm not saying there's not. I'm just not convinced that there ever was, or anything can be attributed to that. I even and here's where I'm trying to bring it back around to what you were originally talking about. But even like the idea of a soul, like that's not a. I'm like, I don't think humans have souls. I have never seen a soul. I don't know what a soul is. I understand it. I understand using the concept of a soul as a placeholder for maybe what we might now describe more objectively as emergent properties of complex systems coming together. But there would be things that we would apply to emotion and consciousness and so forth. So, but a soul is not whenever someone says something about their soul, I'm like, in my head I think about, where do you keep your soul? Where's that part? And so I've even heard someone talk about, I know I'm going on and on, but I remember hearing someone talk about, if there's gonna be if you're gonna believe in a metaphysical world, how would you ever expect it to interact with the physical world? They would always be separate anyway.
I think part of this also goes back to why I emphasized that there's a delineation between the two concepts, right? There's for me, there's an acknowledgement of this unexplained thing that there's a desire to be closer to become more intertwined with, however you want to phrase it, which is why you hear oftentimes people talk about being more in tune with nature or closer to, I'll use nature as the ongoing example just because it's pretty simple.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. I think people can identify with that pretty easily.
Right. And so, if you think about the idea of leading a better life by moving closer to this guiding philosophy, it's the same concept. Where we make leaps or make it difficult on ourselves is when we have to identify and label those as very specific things. And we don't have to. And that's the part that most people miss, because most people, especially in the Southeast, say, no, it has to be God, and that you have to understand it in accordance to these rules and everything else. And no, you don't. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, having to strictly adhere to these labels means you miss the point. And that's the whole focus that I wanted to make sure I brought as follow-up. Because taking it beyond that step, for me, it's easier to think about this concept within the framework of what I've known for all of my life. Right, I have words that kind of match up to how I would identify these things, but I also don't care if those labels are 100% accurate. That's not the point. The point is I can call it this thing in order to talk about it with other people, and they understand what I'm saying. I don't have to say I'm moving toward enlightenment and then scare somebody off, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole framework piece, because the philosophy is the same across the board.
That whole phrase about moving towards enlightenment has kind of been ruined for what you would actually mean for it. So, over the course of doing this show with you and also being challenged by my significant other on certain topics, I've really recognized sort of the issue I have taken with religion and specifically Christianity as personal, related to my own upbringing and religious trauma, and really grasp the concept that if religion is something that makes you a better person, then that's good for you. It's the whole trying to create a theocracy in this country, or imposing your religious views upon other people who don't have the same views that that's still like a triggering thing for me. But also it's like people that I like to be around, people who I want to know more about, people who I think are people I can be. They all see that as a problematic way to approach the world. It's like you keep your religion for yourself, and you don't allow you can't impose upon other people. So I've really come to understand that, like, yeah, your religion is good for you if it's a reason to be a better person. Just like Buddhism is great for a person if that makes them a better person. Atheism is great for a person if it makes them be a better person. So,
it's important to also emphasize that a lot of times the easier way to communicate things isn't so much, or let me rephrase it slightly, it's not always about religion being necessary to make someone a better person. Sometimes it's also about religion being able to allow that person to communicate an idea with someone who doesn't understand their viewpoint.
Yeah. I don't mean it being like I don't mean it in the sense of the strict adherence is like that's what's keeping you from murdering and raping, to steal from others. But because I like that thing, it's like, well, if you don't have religion, it's Ricky Gervais. He's like, I do all the murdering and raping that I want, which is none.
Yeah. I remember
but so I don't mean it in that in terms such as that. But if it's like if for some reason, or if you're a person who finds or interprets the world, I feel like everything I'm saying right now is somewhat.
So it all fits, right? The only reason I make the distinction is the way I view it. It's ever so slightly different, and it's that I'm striving to be a better person because I want to be a better person. That would happen with or without my views on religion or philosophy or life or anything else. Like just who I am is a person trying to be a better version of myself. But a lot of times someone doesn't have the outlook or mindset or vocabulary to grasp what things I view as things that make a better person. And if it's someone that is, especially in the Deep South, if it's someone that is considering themselves, very devout Christian, it's very easy to use that same language to explain the point. So it's almost like a translation mechanism.
Yes, I think I'm trying to go a bit. I think I'm trying to go a bit further than that. I feel like everything that I'm saying is going to come across as pejorative, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying to, because I don't. Well, first of all, I don't want to be disrespectful of anyone's beliefs, especially if they are respectful of my beliefs, which I think it's tricky. It's very tricky. It's very tricky when you start wrapping up your beliefs in your personal identity, and
I think that's why
maybe not. Maybe it's just that all the people I know that do that maybe just take it too personally. I don't know.
That's kind of where I was going to go with it. There are too many people that feel like certain labels are a part of their identity, and I've talked about it in a number of different ways, a number of different fashions. The only label that really matters is human. Everything else you can change and twist and modify in any way, shape, fashion, or form to be positive or negative, all depending on who it's coming from and what their intent is. And it's more difficult with some words or some labels than others, but having a very specific label be core to your identity is problematic when language evolves.
Yes, yes. Well said. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if whatever means that resonates with a person, that drives them to strive to be a better version of themselves, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to.
I think that yeah, it doesn't, it can be as simple as that. So, but I've really had to set aside my own. Like I said, I had to set aside my own personal religious trauma to embrace that sort of thinking. And something that came along with that is I really don't like to even use the label as atheist for myself anymore, because it has baggage that I don't like. And much like maybe, some other people, certain, I know people who will, they won't claim to be a part of a certain denomination in the Protestant church because it has baggage. So I understand that, I think it is a good comparison. And so now, the things that matter to me is the things that we've talked about in many, many times. It's how do you treat people? What are you doing? It's what good is, what good are you adding to the world? So
it's funny. There's a reason that I have long described my views as enlightened back before it was as baggage heavy as it has become. Yeah. Because I never required a specific label. To me, there are too many things that I can immediately point to as problems across the board with pretty much every belief and general structure, that it quickly became, if this problem exists, it exists either because there's a misunderstanding or this is a general principle or concept. And so you start looking for, is it an issue with translation? Is it, that we take the meaning too literally? There are plenty of people who love to quote scripture for something that if you actually, read it in context, it's completely irrelevant to what they're quoting it for. So there are plenty of things like that just made me really annoyed with everything I saw. And it got to a point where I identified that every major religion has the same general principles. And if that's the case, and you're not so beholden to labels that you have to say, no, by God, I'm right and everybody else is wrong, because honestly, that's a stupid outlook to have. It's pretty easy to let go of having to be right, having to have your ego involved, and just say, this works for me to understand what I'm trying to understand, or this works for me to act as a guide in this situation. If this one works for you and we arrive at the same point, great. Still say it's easier to just be a decent human being and be done with it. But
apparently it's not that easy.
No. We have repeatedly, as a society in general, and you can make whatever demarcations on borders or regions or anything else you want, but we have repeatedly shown that we cannot be decent people. Not as a collective.
No. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, fun times. So, networks. Perfect segue, right? And all ties them together.
Right.
Yeah, it was a long follow-up for something that could have been much shorter. I think it was good though. It was one of the fun conversations.
I liked it.
I really don't have much else to add on the networks other than I am debating making another change, but it's not on the wireless side, infrastructure-wise. I'm debating whether I take my individual 8-port PoE switches and just get one 24-port PoE and replace those switches and my distribution switch, because I've realized I have a bottleneck in order to actually leverage my fiber connection in this house. None of my switch ports are faster than gigabit unless I do the SFP modules. And because I have SFP modules on the distribution switch and SFP plus modules on the Dream Machine, it's tricky to make that work. Or I could just replace the switch, and then it's easy to make it work because it would be a newer one with SFP plus modules.
I mean, there's your answer, right?
Yeah, I know. But then it opens up a whole nother range of questions. Do I just go with the good 24-port PoE, or do I go with the Enterprise Edition that also does Layer 3? And of course, at home, I have to go overkill and go with the Layer 3.
How is that even? I was going to say, how's that even a question for you?
Yeah, but that doubles the price. That's the problem.
Well, I understand that. That's a whole other. I don't understand why that's even a. Well, you say that, but it's so funny that you say that because, you've spent the money on a giant network. No, I understand. Like it is a. I don't want to say hobby, but it is because that's not what that. I don't think that encapsulates what I'm thinking. It's a. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I don't know that for sure that there's a word that
occupational
exists for it.
Kind of an occupational hazard.
Well, it's
not. That's wrong. That's wrong. But
yeah, you're
like
going the same train of thought that I was thinking, but I don't know how to best describe it. It's because I know what exists and I know what it can do. It's difficult not to add certain capabilities, even if there's not a
you'll
good
never
reason to.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day there will be a good reason, but it's unlikely. But it's kind of like I think about the mechanics, like the the mechanics that would never get rid of a car, and then you end up like I knew someone who was a mechanic, or they lived out in the country, was a mechanic, and was stored as neat as you can store a car out in the elements, but there was a lot of cars, and they had a place where they could pick apart cars and use the parts. But I totally understand when you get into when you develop a particular tool set or a skill set, you end up having things that are associated with that skill set that you'll never need. I've got so many screwdrivers. It's because I was like, I know one day I'll need this screwdriver. Or I've also got a lot of network cables that I'll never need.
I intentionally took about half. So actually, what I did, as I was sorting stuff, because we're trying to get a yard sale set up so that we can actually maybe get at least one of the vehicles in the garage this month or next month, not this month. So I took my big box of network cables, and anything that was not Cat 6 or better, I tossed in a bin, and that goes with the yard sale stuff. And I still have a big bin of network cables.
Oh, I believe it. And I just think about how there are so many. How many good network cables do you think made it out to a landfill? A lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we I did tell you about the changes I made with a secondary firewall, right, when I moved here?
I believe so, but I don't remember what they are.
So basically, I have AT&T fiber coming to the house, and then that feeds into the unified Dream Machine with the via fiber. So I have a fiber uplink from the fiber modem to the Dream Machine. So
is the Dream Machine is your firewall, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the Unify console, basically. So it's running, it is a firewall and router combo, but it also runs the controller stuff. And so I have it.
Why they call it the Dream Machine.
Yeah. It's fun marketing. They have multiple versions of it at this point. There's even one that's wall mount, looks kind of neat, includes wire. I think that one includes Wi-Fi. I don't know. Multiple iterations. I have the Dream Machine Pro, which would be, kind of your mid-size business level equipment. Small to mid-size. I don't know that I would go over mid-size. But anyway, so I have fiber uplink to the fiber modem to it. So I have full throughput from the Dream Machine. But then I only have gigabit uplinks. And so I have, from the Dream Machine, it goes to a Firewalla. I think it's the gold version, or I don't remember their version numbers, but it's their top of the line one. Where if I had 2.5 gig per second ports on the Dream Machine feeding it, I would have full throughput to it as well, because it's capable of doing 2.5 gig on the RJ45 ports.
Wow.
But the Firewalla is in a transparent bridge mode. And then from that, it goes to my distribution switch. So all traffic from the house is quote unquote transparently inspected by the Firewalla and still adheres to the security settings and all on the Dream Machine. So it technically have 2 levels of scanning for problems, if you will. And it's worked out well. The main reason I did it is because the Firewalla includes the ability to do like segmenting of traffic based on profiles and like some parental control stuff, if you want to do it that way. That makes it easier than what Ubiquiti has done with Unify to isolate my son's devices and make sure that certain settings are applied, even if you try to change them at the OS level on the device. So it was my easy way of saying, I'm just going to put this in so that I can control things a little bit more. And in between that and what I control on the Unify, you can change whatever you want physically on the device. You'd have to be running a VPN to get around my stuff, and I'm capable of detecting that now as well. So now I may not be able to stop it, but I could detect it.
I mean, you just unplug the fiber, unplug the fiber. That would seem very dramatic. I was gonna say, and the rest of us are out here muddling around with our our D-Link and what was the other brand?
Well, yeah, D-Link and Linksys was big at the same time. Yes. Netgear was the cheaper version at the time.
I think Netgear's still around, right?
They are, and Linksys was bought by Cisco.
Yeah, I knew.
So they're technically still around.
Yeah, I don't know. Do they still sell things under the Linksys brand?
I think so. I think I've seen something. Asus got into the router market with their Nighthawk stuff.
Apple got out.
Yeah, I know a lot of people lament that. They lagged behind the competition enough that I actually am okay with it. Like, I would like to have Apple doing what it does and introducing something new. But I kind of also don't mind having a dedicated company giving me stuff focused on that and not, potentially stealing development cycles or something.
Yeah, no, I actually don't lament them getting out of that market, because I think when they were in it at the right time for the right reasons. And
their stuff was certainly good. Like, I don't want to take anything away from what Apple was able to do. It's just
they just didn't. It ended up becoming like, I feel like like what I did with my last time capsule is indicative of what Apple did in it. I had the next to last generation, or maybe even 2 generations, but it was like the flat time capsule. I don't know if there were two generations of the tall time capsule. I think there were, but anyway, I had it in bridge mode, wired to my amplified, just to continue to do time machine backups over the network.
What I liked back in the main, I guess, heyday of Apple's wireless stuff, I loved
2004,
maybe. maybe even '05. But I loved the Airport Expresses being able
Oh,
to be
they were
used
great.
as AirPlay speakers.
Yes, that was pretty cool. I did that. That was my first. My first airport was the Airport Express. Yeah, I got it in 2006, maybe.
And it was great because they were the first ones that you could set the same SSID on multiple base stations, and it wasn't
Yes.
meshing, but it would move to the other one if the signal was better.
It was really cool. The first one I owned was the first generation Airport Express, which had a 4-year run. I didn't realize that. But the first one that I didn't own but used was the airport base station in graphite, the original. I worked at a company that had those, and it was. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it had. I think it functioned as a modem, like a dial-up modem, maybe not.
I don't remember. I remember seeing the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it had a. So I was working at a company that was at the time, ironically, their business administration side was Mac, and we were running OS 9, Mac OS 9, and they had a production team that I think I've mentioned this before. They had a production team, and they were all Windows based, which was ironic at the time. Anyway, they had a built-in 56K modem, and so I remember my boss who, it was a small company, and he was doing all of the computer IT related things in 2001, and the company was getting big enough, and he was having to do more and more with the database that he administered, that he needed to focus full time on the database. But that's why they hired me to take care of all. I was an assistant to him, and but at the time, like when I think the first week I was there, he had set up 2 airport base stations. Wasn't using them for Wi-Fi because almost none of the computers had Wi-Fi cards, because you had to buy the Wi-Fi cards separately. He was setting it up to 2 of them on the network, so that because they were having some problem with high-speed internet, so they were using 2 airports with the 56K modems on the network to double the bandwidth.
Nice.
To try to get 112K. That lasted for a few months. And then whoever their ISP sorted out their high-speed internet and got it taken care of.
Certainly a decent use of the technology for the time.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's kind of like how I think I've told this story before. This was, of course, much later in the days of early broadband, we'll say. But I was renting a house with 2 other guys, all of us good friends. And one of the guys worked for a local cable company, and so he had ridiculously cheap prices for having all their services. And we ran a specific enterprise grade software on a server with a couple of WAN ports created, one for one ISP and one for the other local ISP in the area, and did traffic shaping and everything so that we could have all of us gaming or doing whatever on basically simultaneous internet connections. And that was giving, I want to say it was 3 or 6 megs per second on one, and the other was the higher of the 2. But this was before you could get, nice 100 plus meg connections on any provider, much less those. I think the max at the time, if you were lucky enough to be in the right neighborhood, was 12 megs per second.
Oh, wow. Wow. I think refrigerators go faster than that now.
Probably.
Yeah. It's like we have 802.11 AC, or I don't know, whatever. I don't even know what this current standard is, but I do one of the other things I remember at this company. We set up a ruby red iMac in the front lobby at a desk for the receptionist, and my boss bought an airport card with it because you had to buy those separately. Put that in the iMac, but then also put in an Ethernet cable and ran it down the side of it, and it ran under the rug. And he just looked at me and says, "I don't want people asking me for airport cards." He didn't want to.
So the cable wasn't even plugged up to anything.
No, it was just plugged into the
Gotcha.
iMac, and because like it was so much, it would have been stupid to try to the way that it was set up. It was like set up not in the middle of the room, but they used you know how you would use a desk to create a divider in the room. So it's like you have like a front door, you walk in, there's like a seating area, there is the receptionist's desk, and it was like, you know, kind of like there was a lot of interesting startup vibes at this company because it was like a very small company, and you know, it was a startup at some point, but you know, they were rolling along into you know, medium-sized business, small to medium-sized business. I can't remember where you draw the line there, but yeah, it was you know, it was a thing where it's like, using the desk to appropriately divide the room, and there was no Ethernet socket in that room because it was a lobby in 2000 in a building that I don't know how long it had been around, but it was 2001, and the only rooms in that building that had Ethernet sockets were the offices. So, you know, that makes sense. And they were probably retrofitted, you know, at some point. They probably pulled all that cable into a network closet. I don't think it was built with that in mind. So, because it was probably built in the early 90s. And so, yeah, it was just easier and less expensive to put an airport card in there and then use the Ethernet cable as a decoy. And so that people wouldn't ask to buy airport cards. But while I was there, it eventually didn't matter because Apple started shipping computers, notebooks with airport cards built in already. So
Yeah, I actually forgot that was a separate thing until when I was troubleshooting the Quicksilver G3 or Quicksilver G4 that I've got. I recognized the airport card, and it was like, oh yeah, this used to be separate.
Yeah,
and I know it's separate in the Cube as well. It's been so long since I've taken that one apart. I did at least verify that the Cube still boots and works without any issue.
So I don't know if any of the G3 iMacs came with it. I'm sure maybe later on they started when as wireless technology was picking up, or Wi-Fi was picking up as a consumer solution, and I know all the G4 iMacs shipped with. So instead of having like an airport card, you know, instead of designing a computer where you could put in a Wi-Fi card and connect an antenna, because like all those iMacs, all those G3 came as airport ready, and they, you know, it started, you know, they just started building it into the devices. Like, this is a thing, this is a feature that you get because you want it. So I think the G4 was the last one to have an RJ11 connector with a modem in the computer.
Yeah, I think so.
The last computer to ship without Wi-Fi or Bluetooth was the 2010 Mac Pro. So a decade later, you know, like more than a decade after Apple started selling Wi-Fi routers, is when they put, you know, they started. So they didn't. Let me rephrase. That was the model. Was the 2010 Mac Pro. They didn't start putting in Wi-Fi cards into the Mac Pro until that slight revision that they made for the 2012 Mac Pro. That was the first one that had the Wi-Fi card included.
Interesting.
I used to watch a lot of videos on YouTube about it. And at that point I was also I was just starting behind the Genius Bar, and it was fun. there were a number of YouTube videos I watched where people were doing stuff with Mac Pros, and I'm like, oh, you're doing this wrong, because like I remember when it was like, ooh, it doesn't come with a card, and then I remember somebody coming to the Genius Bar with a Mac Pro, and they're like talking about an issue with Wi-Fi, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't come with a Wi-Fi card. You just need to buy a Wi-Fi card. It's like $50, and they're like, oh, okay. And then I saw I remember one time somebody came in and they're like, I bought a Wi-Fi card and it didn't work. And I knew exactly what the problem was. They had not connected the antenna. Like there was a certain order that you connected the antenna. Much like there were certain Mac Pros that you had to you had to pair the RAM correctly. So kind of like that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how much of that you forget until someone starts talking about it again.
Yeah. We
it's
should
like,
get...
And I was just going to say, it's like there's a lot of software that I forgot about until like today. I was going through a bin of stuff again, trying to get a lot of stuff purged. And I found like my old iMac and PowerBook G4 restore discs and a bunch of stuff. I even have a completely sealed version of Logic Studio. And it can... Not to stay on the Mac train, also have a completely sealed version of Windows 95 and DOS 3.1. Like,
oh my
I have
gosh.
so much old random stuff at this point. And then I think about, but how old is it really? And it's a lot of it is post 2000. Some of it obviously is before then. Like you start thinking about the Mac OS 9 and 8.6 that I've got somewhere that I still haven't found, Windows 95, etc. So some stuff is older, but the vast majority of my quote-unquote old software is from Windows, generally speaking, the year 2000 to 2008, roughly 2010, something in that range. And it's hilarious to me to think about that being old, antiquated software, when in reality, with how fast, in general, technology has moved over the past 20, 30 years, yeah, it makes sense. Like there's a logical component of saying, yes, of course it's old, but then there's but it's after the year 2000. Like,
yeah,
I'm significantly older than that kind of thing.
Well, I was just going to say, I think, the growth of technology or the changing, let's say even just consumer technology, that, it's still exponential. Like the growth is exponential.
It's still mind-boggling to think that the iPhone, for all of its influence and everything else, is still a post-2000 device. And I don't know, I think the year 2000 stands out so much in my mind because of my generational location, so to speak, because Y2K was such a big thing, supposedly, until it wasn't. And then, but, riding the cusp of technology up to that point, and then after that point, that feels like the demarcation point. And there are drastic jumps in capabilities after the year 2000. So if you start thinking back to what was happening prior to that, man, does that feel old.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I know that I've mentioned this on the show before, and it's out there, but Halt and Catch Fire was a fun show to watch for that reason. It's like the beginning of the first couple of seasons take place in the 80s, and the second, I know the last season definitely takes place in the 90s, but I can't remember if the third does. But it's very interesting to watch and be like, wow, that looks so old, but it was like, oh, but that's in my lifetime. Because prior to that, things that seemed old were not in my lifetime. Things that seemed that old were not in my lifetime. And you've probably seen this going around that, like, if you were to make, God forbid, if you were to make Back to the Future now, going to the past, it would be 1993 to go that far back in the past.
I saw that recently, actually.
Yeah. And then people are like, so what song would, he wakes up in 1985, and it's like, the song that's being played is Mr. Sandman. When he's going around Hill Valley.
Enter Sandman?
Well, I was going to say, now if you were going to do it for 1993, it could be Enter Sandman.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it is interesting to see the, or even to make comparisons. I just think about, so it's funny. I remember so many times for the first, God, it wasn't even, I don't even think this lasted for more than 2 years, but I just remember people would come, like when I first started working at Apple, I worked at, it was after the original iPhone launched, but it was before the iPhone 3G launched. So I sold a few of the original iPhone, and it was a pretty easy transaction. Someone says, I want to buy an iPhone. You could buy up to 5 a day, and you just scan the barcodes and send them on the way, and they go home and activate them or not. Many times there are people that came in, they were buying 5 iPhones, and you know how that goes. But I was just thinking about how like that iPhone does way less than an iPhone does now. I remember thinking how cool it would be just to be able to check my email on my phone. Like I had no desire to browse the internet on the original. When the original iPhone came out, I was like, my thought was like, oh, that would be great to have, because now I often carried an iPod and a mobile phone. I had a Motorola Rocker Motorola Sliver. And I was like, that would be nice to not have 2 things in my pocket. And then, so the original iPhone, I was like, yeah. And then I could check my email. I had no desire to surf the internet. I had no desire to look up websites there. Obviously, the web was very different back then. But now it's just like so many times where it's like, I'm just going to look it up on my phone, because it's just like, it's too easy. It's too convenient to go to sit down in front of a computer to do certain things.
Yeah, I never would have imagined the day would come when I wouldn't touch my computer on a daily basis. It's kind of the way I measured it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll go a week. Like it'll be almost a week, not quite a full week, but close to a week without even touching my computer, because I just hadn't had a reason to. Like everything else I needed to do, I could do on the phone.
Yeah. Or even...
Go ahead. What I was going to say is just with the different creative endeavors, that's what sucks me back to the computer. If it wasn't for those, I could probably go a month without touching the computer.
Yeah, I like on the weekends, because so like most of the time I'm on a computer. If I'm doing something personal on the computer, it's because I'm also working. Like I'm doing work at my computer that the work requires using a computer. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could I could set up an iPad or my phone to do the work, but it would be abysmal. It's the wrong tool. But it's typically like I did a little shopping today while I was waiting for something, and I did it on the computer, but under normal circumstances I would have done that on my phone. Like if it had been the weekend, I would have been on my phone. Like pretty much every weekend I don't touch my computer at all, because I can do everything on the phone. And in 2007, when the iPhone came out, nobody was thinking I'm going to pull my phone out. Even though I'm sitting here right in front of my computer, I'm going to pull my phone out to do this computer task because it's better on the phone, which happens all the time now. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.